Are you having problems with your LED lights? Are they flickering or not dimming very well? We're going to have a look at what the reasons might be for that. Have you got problems with poor dimming performance for your lights, your LED lights? We're going to have a look at this. Generally, you have your dimmer switch and that either talks directly to your light bulb or it goes via some piece of electronics which then talks to your lamp. So let's have a look at what could cause these issues. Let's start right at the very beginning. You get power coming into your house, generally 230 volts in the UK, and that feeds your sockets, your appliances, your lighting, everything electrical. In your lighting, that can be 230 volts, mains voltage, like your pendant lights and such, or if you've got down lights, they can be 12 volts. There's a little transformer in the ceiling that reduces the voltage from 230 to 12 volts. And that's something that's quite important to remember if you're trying to swap these out with LED versions. It may sound obvious, but the most important thing to ensure good dimming of a light, a lamp, is to make sure that it's actually dimmable. We're so used to all the old-fashioned filament bulbs being dimmable, they just were. But some LEDs aren't dimmable, so you have to make sure when you buy one, it's got this symbol here on the packaging, this dimmable symbol. If it's not dimmable, we'll have a cross through it. And I've noticed a few times customers buy lights thinking they are dimmable because they've seen this symbol on the box. It's a little bit like that. And it's not that's a recycle symbol, it means the packaging is recyclable. That is not the symbol for a dimmable light. It'll be something like this. And you get various different types of bulbs. Halogens and filament lights are generally quite easy to dim. LEDs are possible to dim. MR16s are low voltage lights. They're quite difficult to dim because there's a transformer involved as well. Compact fluorescents, they're very difficult to dim and do require some control gear to make that happen. So basically, you've got to make sure that your lamp is dimmable. The next thing you need to have is a dimmer that can actually dim LED lights. Now your dimmer switch comes in two parts. You've got the faceplate and you've got the actual dimmer module. Now you can remove the faceplate and just swap out this module for one that can dim LED lights. And that means you don't have to buy a whole new dimmer. Decorative faceplates can be expensive. You don't need to buy a new one, you can keep that. All you need to do is replace the module at the back of the switch. Just as you get different lamps, you get different dimmers. And different dimmers work better with certain lamps. The LED lamps work best with the trailing edge type dimmer, an LED dimmer. If you go on your wholesalers and ask for an LED dimmer, they'll know what you mean. But basically, you get your waveform, your AC waveform, and what the dimmer does, it actually chops off bits of that waveform to cause the dimming of the lights. And it seems that the LEDs like the trailing edge of that waveform chopped off. But we don't need to go too much into detail of that. Like I say, there's loads of stuff on the internet if you want to find out about the actual science of dimming. But what we need to know is that if you want a dimmer module, make sure it's a trailing edge. That'll give you your best dimming performance for your LED lights. You also get different ratings for your dimmer. That's how much power the dimmer switch can actually handle. So what you need to do is count up how many lights you've got and work out what size dimmer switch you need. The dimmer switches come in various ranges, 60 to 250 watts, 60 to 400, 60 to 600, 60 to 1000. There's all different types of ranges. You need to make sure that you've got a dimmer switch that can handle the amount of lights you've got. You don't want to put too many lights on a switch because when you switch it on, if you've got an awful lot of lights switching on at the same time, you get a big inrush current and that can damage dimmers. So you get something known as derating as well. That it can be up to as much as 50%. So if you've got 10 lamps, for example, 500 watts of power, ideally what you should have on that is a 1000 watt dimmer to safely handle that load. But it works the other end as well, that if it's 60 to 250 watts, for example, if you just got one lamp on that, there's not really enough power getting drawn through this dimmer to make it work properly. It doesn't like it when it's underloaded, and that's why you might get flickering as well with your lights, because there's not enough lights on the circuit for the dimmer to work correctly. So you need to match the dimmer up with the amount of lights you do have. It's the same with the LED dimmer as well, but it's a ratio. So you might think, oh, I've got a 300 watt dimmer, but I've only got 50 watts of light because 10 lights, 5 watts each, that's only 50 watts. This dimmer module can easily handle that. But again, we've got this inrush current thing, and that's a lot more pronounced with LED lighting. And if you switch too many lights on at the same time, this dimmer switch will just blow. So you derate it again, sometimes as much as 1 in 10. So for a 30 to 300 watt LED dimmer, that might be between 3 and 30 watts. And then you can work out how many lights you can dim off that. LED dimmer modules often tell you how many lights it can dim. It's the same thing again. If there's not enough power getting pulled through, you're going to get flickering. So you've got to make sure that the dimmer rating matches the amount of lights you've got and the amount of power that's going through it at the low end and at the high end. Right, so if you've still got an old dimmer switch that's been on your wall for 5 years or more, it's a good chance it's not LED compatible. We'll have a look at what it dims like. It'll dim all the halogens and filaments pretty good, but it will struggle to dim LED lights. Compact fluorescence, it won't be able to do it all. In MR16s, your low voltage lights, it's going to really struggle there because there's also a transformer in the circuit as well, and there's too many competing technologies there for successful dimming. Okay, we've swapped out the dimmer module. We put an LED dimmer in now. Let's look at the various different lights, how they'll dim. Your halogens and filament lights, they're still pretty good. They'll still dim pretty good because LED dimmers seem to be able to handle halogen filament loads as long as you're within the rating of the dimmer switch. But as you can see, LED lighting, even with an LED dimmer, it can still be variable. It's so dependent on the quality of the lamp and the quality of the LED dimmer. So you've always got to buy a good LED dimmer. I'll recommend one in a bit. In good quality lamps, they'll be recommended at the end as well. One of the most difficult LED lights to dim is your extra low voltage MR16 downlight. You often have these in your bathroom, and you might want to swap them out for LED versions, and they just flash or flicker or don't work very well at all. And that's because there's so much different technologies all competing with each other. You've got your dimmer switch, you've got your transformer, which transforms it from 230 volts to 12 volts. And you've got your internal driver in the actual LED light. And these are different technologies, and they just don't want to talk to each other most of the time. The best you can do really is make sure that the lamp is dimmable and that the dimmer is an LED dimmer, but it's the transformer that causes the problems. So many different makes, some work better than others, some don't work at all. Might work for a short while and it'll start flashing. I can never really guarantee that this is going to work. I think the best thing to do really is swap out the whole fitting. It is possible in some circumstances to actually convert these fittings from MR16s to GU10 lamps. You do this by removing the transformer, removing the lamp. You change the lamp holder in the fitting to one that will take GU10 mains voltage lamps. But there's a few important things to realise if you're thinking about doing this. One thing, it is a job for a qualified electrician to carry out this work really, because these fittings are no longer 12 volt, they are 230 volts. So you need to make sure that they are connected to the earth, the CPC. Often 12 volt extra low voltage lights didn't have a CPC connected to them because we're getting the protection from them being fed by a 12 volt source. But now these are now at 230 volts. They have to be earth, they have to have a CPC connected to them. And 230 volt lighting is not permitted in some locations, in some certain zones, in bathrooms and such. So you've got to be very careful you're not converting bathroom lighting to 230 volts when it's not permitted there. The fittings also have to be rated for 230 volts. The IP rating's got to be maintained as well, because if they're in bathrooms, for example, you don't want ingress of water and moisture into the fittings. So like I say, it's a job for the qualified electrician to do this kind of job, but it is possible in certain circumstances. You could possibly in a kitchen or something like that, you can swap these fittings out. I think the better solution though is to get a self-contained unit. There's lots of new lights coming on the market, self-contained LED modules that are fed from a very low DC source, and they've got good ingress protection, so they're suitable for bathrooms. So if you are having problems with the MR16s, it is possible to convert to GU10 lamps, but I think the better solution is to buy a suitable self-contained unit. But like I say, if you do think about doing this, it's very important that you're worth it and you don't do this in bathrooms and such. So just to recap, when you're trying to dim LED lamps, most important thing is to make sure that your lamp is dimmable and it's a good quality lamp. I've had good success with Philips. Their lamps seem to dim quite well. I use my wholesaler to buy lamps as well, and they stock a range of lamps by a company called All LED. I'm not sure how widespread they are throughout the country, but all wholesalers will have a stock of LED lamps, and it's a good place to go to get them because for the start they're going to be cheaper, and also electricians buy their lamps there, and they're not going to sell lamps that keep failing, so the electrician has to keep going back to swap them out. Electricians don't want to be doing that. So go on your wholesaler and ask what they recommend is a good quality lamp that is going to last. Because I know they say lamp's going to last 50,000 hours. I'm finding that's quite often not the case. LED lamps fail, it seems to me, just as much as the halogen ones. But you can buy better ones and ones that dim better. It's still new technology, really, and I still think we're finding out what's what with it. You've also got to make sure that your dimmer is LED compatible. The best dimmer module I've found for general domestic lighting control is the VPro range from JPElectric. They're very good dimmers. I've had good success with dimming all kinds of LED lights with them. So yeah, you've got to make sure your dimmer module is LED compatible. And also, if you're powering such stuff as LED tape or things like that, you've got to make sure that the LED driver, you've got to make sure that that's dimmable as well. So there's a few things to consider. Basically, make sure it's all compatible with LEDs. And you get a lot of good self-contained fittings now, which is often the way to go. They've got the driver and the lamp all built in, and they generally dim really quite well, especially if you use a proper dimmer like a V Pro. So that's my tip for decent dimming of LED lamps. It is still a bit of a minefield, but if you use these few tips here, I think you'll have some good success. Okay, thanks very much for watching.